today. Sorry, I didn't bring spectacles. I have to wear spectacles. Now I think okay, it's visible. Okay, how do you all? How is going today? How went today? Come on, I am on the line. I didn't bring the spectacles, so I'm not going to read anything. Uh, please, I will wait I will wait for some time up until I'll get the messages. Um, I have to take the spectacles first. Give me. I will bring. Wait for a minute. I'll be back. Oh, hi. How do you all? I brought my spectacles. Okay, what the subject I have to read now? It's a great person I'm having here as my with me, my sibling. She switched off the light when I'm reading because of the visible of my face. How could I read this? That's a great idea of my sibling. Don't mind. Hi, how do you all? A common civil code spelling equality for every Indian. The 22nd Law Commission has called for responses to proposal for a uniform civil code in India. This has set for a debate which has often been acrimonious, but the debate itself is much needed as Indian have never been consulted on the personal laws they are governed by. These laws were in, instituted by the British colonial government of giving a cursory hearing to the clergy on religious scholars in the case of religious without one. The result was a religion based set of personal laws for Hindus, Muslims, and Christians. Whether, whether the colonizers did this out of deep concern for the sentiments of natives, or it was intended as another instrument in strategy of divide and rule in order to hold India is irrelevant, but we should know that provinces of India's personal laws. Geeta Devi Thumma. Hi. Laws that are boxed. Personal laws in India are boxed according to the religion or school or social origins of citizen. However, it does not take much to see a fearful symmetry between them. This is their uh, unmistakably patriarchal framing, whether men or privileged at every turn. Thus, only a man can be the Karta of head of Hindu undivided family, a Muslim woman is not entitled to maintenance beyond certain period. Among some tribes of India, the custom is that women do not inherit ancestral property, and a Parsi woman who marries outside the community is is excommunicated. So from the point of view of women's empowerment, India's civil code is uniform already. As for the section of the population that we today refer to the LGBT community, the British colonialist colonialist ನಂಗಾಕು ಹಂಗಂದ ಲಂಗಾಯ್ತು ಹೆಂಗೆ ಹಿಂಗೆక్కడ ನಂಗಾకు ಹೆಂಗೇమి ಕಂಗನದ ಉಂಗನలేదు ಮುಂಗುಂದು లంగాయిటు ಹೆಂಗೆ ನಂಗಾకు right. Now I can see, but the lighting is not covering well to me. Okay, I can manage with my hand. Yes, this is good. Yes, I'm feeling good with this light. Okay, is this okay? Okay, consider them there. Flotsam, uh, jetsam to be ignored personal law, but their actions deserve to be criminalized even when they were consensual. Ningiku anganadi mangarda unguna ningiku angarda mangainda ingeledo ingaku tengildu ఇంగి బంగాష అంగారికి తెంగుల్సు లెంగేదో నంగాకు తెంగిలిదు ఇంగిది మంగాకు లొంగాల లంగాడు. We can now see why we cannot consider ourselves to be democracy so long as we continue with current approach to personal law. It is not because it is not the same for different religious groups, but because their uniformly particular denies women equality before the law. Prime Minister Narendra Modi widely responded query as to how one country can be run on two laws misses this, but so does the opposition when it rushes to defend inaction on these personal laws on grounds of diversity, which they hold as sacrosanct. Sanct, sacrosanct. Beautiful, sis. Thank you, sis. You made me in dark. Sister Anganga. Hi, sister. Angakada, Engenga, Ungana. The antiquity of India's custom and the diversity of in people are both brought up to make case for tiptoeing around the existing personal laws despite their unequal rights for men and women. But is this a valid argument at all? India's caste system is antique, all right, but India's lawmakers were wise enough to junk it in law very early on history of independent India. The matter of diversity. Next comes diversity. Opponents of the reform seem to be unaware that they are extolling a diversity based on religion. Hence, it is worth recalling political scientist Pratap Bhanu Mehta remembered that India was not considered of as federation of religious. Similarly, during the deliberation of the Constituent Assembly, B.R. Ambedkar to said to have expenses surprised that religion was being given as much importance when choosing India's political arrangements. These observations have a bearing on what is being debated today. Whether India's civil code accord with the dictats all religions is relevant irrelevant all irrelevant. What matters is that it must be in accord with the democratic principles of liberty, equality, and dignity. It is entirely possible to draft a civil code that preserves these ideas without any reference to religious practices. This would have the merit of being secular, in keeping with the defining characters of India's constitution. Self appointment heads of religious groups have resided calls for a common civil code by resorting to the argument that the infringers upon religious freedom. They fail to see that religious freedoms means the freedom to adapt the faith of one's choice in the domain of expression of faith, such as public worship. India court have declared that it should conform to constitutional principles in what may be considered one of the most significant social changes in India. Restrictions of temple entry to the Avarna was discontinued almost a century ago. Much later, the Supreme Court of India struck down the practice of restricting women's entry to the Sabarimala temple. These milestones point to the understanding of the right of religion as being confined to choice of one's faith and not to extra constitutional expressions of faith, such as the regulation of the woman authority by men. This takes us to the question of um, efficacy of legislation in advancing rights. For instance, when it comes to temple entry, we find instances of Dalit being denied entry even today. There are also recovered cases of bigamy among Hindus in some religions greater than among Muslims. But the conclusion of drawn from this that banning of polygamy among Muslims is discriminatory in a non-secular with a non sequitur, the response invalidates a call for ending the provision for polygamy among Muslims. The right response would be prosecute those Hindus violating the law. What is relevant here is not parity among more of different religious groups. When it comes to marriage, it is the right of woman within every religious grouping. Religious grouping. The, the demand that section the population, whether tribal or Muslim, are entitled to separate personal laws even when they are gender unjust falls to acknowledge that they are equal beneficiaries of India's democracy. Democracy guarantees them liberty and equality in all spheres of life, including access to the rule of law, freeing them from a arbitrary governance. A reform of their personal laws to end gender discrimination, rendering them compatible with democracy, would be no more than to seek balance between the rights and the responsibilities. Bridging a gap. The obsession with party among miles across India's religion-based personal codes blanks out of issue of rights of LGBT community to amount of reform of the Hindu, Muslim and Christian personal codes can reach them, for they have been rendered invisible by these colonial era constructions. If there were to be a common civil code applicable to all Indians, irrespective of faith, gender, and sexual orientation, the LGBT population could be accommodated within it. It is absence an alternative would have to conceived of given the recognition implicitly granted to them with the reading down of Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code in 2018 and the highly visible hearing of petition in the Supreme Court to allow same-sex marriage, which concluded only recently, the question of personal law for this group can no longer be postponed. To be credited, to be credible, the current debate on personal law must include the LGBT for the questions of civil partnership, inheritance, and adoption are as relevant to them as to other Indians. Mundane acts such as opening a bank account or purchasing life insurance would make one aware of this complacently confining the discussion of India's personal law within Hindu Muslim binary leaves unrecognized the potential to empower a wide section of the population through their drastic overhaul. The combination of the combination of uniformly gender unjust personal law and the disempowered LGBT population points to the advantage of having a universal civil code which encompasses all Indians. On Independence Day in 1947, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru had, in a message to the nation, stated that task before the India was to create social, economic, and political institutions which will ensure justice and fulfillment of life to every man and woman. No social changes has been imagined in this vision. A universal civil code would be step in that direction. ಹೆಂಗೆ ಹಂಗಕಡೆ ಹಂಗ ಸಂಘ ಇಡು ತಿಂಗೇಸಿ ಚೆಂಗಪ್ಪ ಮಂಗನೆ ಹಂಗತಿ ಒಂಗಂತು ಒಂಗದ್ರಿ ಹೆಂಗೇಮ್ ಕಂಗಾದು ಒಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಒಂಗದ್ರು ಚೆಂಗೆಪ್ಪು ಒಂಗೊದ್ದು ಒಂಗೊದ್ದು ನಂಗೊಪ್ಪಿ A bill that fences in the right to information. The news that the Union Cabinet has approved the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill and will table it in the monsoon session of Parliament, that is July 20th to August 11th, raises certain issues. The draft bill was placed in the public domain in December 2022, but the final bill has not been placed before the public. Citizens are concerned that if two of its provisions are not changed, it may lead to major regression for democracy. Major regression for democracy. The proposal Digital Personal Data Protection Bill has two provisions which would greatly weaken the Indian civil citizens' right to information. The Indian Right to Information Act, effective since October 12, 2005, is one of the best transparency law is old, empowering citizens, and it is practical recognition of their role as the rulers and women owners of India. This is the custom of people struggling, custom of people struggling, custom of people struggling, struggles by the Mazdoor Kisan Sakti Sangatans fight steering in the rural Rajasthan, which culminated in the drafting of the law in 2004. There were intense discussion about its provisions and took as all party parliamentary committee to carefully draft its provisions. Its preamble elegancy states that the democracy required informed citizens and transparency in their affair of the government so that they can hold it accountable and curb corruption. It is harmonized the need for an efficient government while preserving the identical of democracy, ideals of democracy, embraced by the citizen. Government and those wielding the levers of the power has been purchased by this transfers of power to the ordinary citizen. Citizens have taken to the right to information like to fish to water, like a fish to water, fish to water. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Like a fish to water, but not like a water to fish. Fish to water, despite public officials using various devices to deny citizens their legitimate right. Many have used this democratic instrument to expose wrongdoing and corruption. The law recognizes that the difficult code is that each citizen has to write access almost all the information with the government, then category of the information have been exempted from disclosure to prevent harm to the certain interest and to ensure smooth working of the government. These are outlined in the section 800 with the 10 description from a 2. The most widely misused exemption is the Section 81I, which exempted personal information which is not a part of the public activity or which it is a invasion on the privacy of an individual. It has a proviso it has a proviso which is an acid test to help anyone claiming exemption which states provided and the information which cannot be denied to the parliament or a state legislature shall not be denied to all persons. Thus, the law stated that the personal information may be exempt it. It is not related to public activity or interest or would be cause unwanted invasion of the privacy of an individual. To help an information commissioner of judge to arrive at the right decision, the special proviso was provided as an acid test. Whoever claimed that a disclosure was exempt under section 8 I and J should be should make a statement that he would not give this information to the parliament into parliament. The basic the basis of refusals. The basis of refusals. Many refusals of information did not adhere to law but refused information with a bland statement that silence it was provision information they would not give it up. This was illegal, but he has widely used it to cover arbitrary, corrupt, or illegal acts of government officials. Some examples are the Department of Personnel and Training refusing total number of annual performance appraisal report of IAS officers pending presently for over 1 year, 2 years, these 3 and the 4 years by claiming exemption under Section 8 IJ request for details of member of the Legislative Assembly. Finding being denied, saying it was personal information, information details of the beneficiaries of the Prime Minister's fund, bogus, bogus case certificates, education certificates, ghost employees, gross arbitrariness, and corruption in sections for job and conformance to rules and laws, dipro, dispro, disproportionate assets compared to declared income, verification of affidavits of elected representatives, unfair, unfair, unfair assessment of students and job seekers in government. This disregard of the corruption charges against officials that have been proven, file nothing, and minutes of meetings. Thank you so much. Good night. Bye, bye, bye.